Okay, well, thank you very much for this invitation and for the suggestion, I think, by René, who suggested that I might talk about some of our common researches. So I will speak about something a little bit more abstract, perhaps, at the previous talk, but hopefully at some point, both abstract and applied mathematics will be joined in this project. So I will speak about quasi-stationary distributions and some of its applications. If I have the time, I will present work in collaborations with Michel Benaïm, Nicolas Champagnat, Cécile Mayer, and René Schott. So my plan is as follows. I will start with a simple exposition of what is a quasi-stationary distribution, and then I will talk about some not so recent results about uniform convergence toward quasi-stationary distributions, then about the problem of non-uniform convergence, and I will present a related approximation scheme obtained through a reinforced process. And then in the second part, I will present some results on measure-valued Polya processes, which are some processes that in some sense generalize Polya urns in infinite color with infinite colors. So of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me, and don't hesitate to stop me when time runs out. So I will start with a very simple example. And the first example is a very well-known model, birth and death chain on finite state space. So in this case, the Markov chain X is irreducible, it is aperiodic, and it is well known that X admits a unique stationary distribution, it's a nu S, and that nu S is related to the transition probabilities of the chain through the eigenvector equation, nu SP is equal to nu S. And it is also well known either by a probabilistic argument, by coupling arguments, or using simply Perron-Frobenius theorem, that the limit when n goes to infinity of mu pn, that is the limit when n goes to infinity of the law of xn under p mu, is equal to nu s. And it is also known that the convergence is exponential and uniform in the initial distribution. So there are well-known extensions to this very simple model to more general and more complex models, either using a spectral theory, for instance, in L2. This is the counterpart of using the Perron-Frobenius approach, and also using coupling methods, irreducibility assumptions, and so on. So now let's modify this model a little bit. I just add a point 0 to the state space, and I add a transition probability from 1 to 0, and importantly, no transition probability from 0 to the state space 1 to up to n. So in this case, as you can see, 0 is the only absorbing state of the process. Then in this case, it's not too difficult either to prove that X admits a unique quasi-stationary distribution that I will denote by nu QS, and which is also related to the transition probabilities of the process restricted to 1 to up to n, that I will denote by p, and through the also an eigenvector equation of the form nu qs times p is equal to theta 0 times nu qs, where theta 0 is positive and in this case strictly smaller than 1. So this is very similar to the previous situation, but you have this small difference. And also using Perron-Frobenius theorem, it's not difficult to show. It has been shown by, first observed by Daroche and Seneta. It's not difficult to prove that when n goes to infinity, theta 0 to the power minus n times mu pn, that is theta 0 times power minus n times the law of xn under p mu, converges when n goes to infinity times mu eta times mu qs, where eta is a right eigenfunction, the only positive right eigenfunction of the transition matrix P. Okay, so we have this kind of close relations between P and the object mu qs and eta. And Here also it's a consequence of Perron-Fromen's theorem, and it implies that the conditional law of the process, that is the law of Xn under P mu condition to Xn has not attained the absorbing state 0 before time n, minus nu qs converges to 0. And in fact, it converges exponentially fast at a speed that can be measured by the spectral gap of P. Okay. So now a natural question is it possible also to provide a coupling method, probabilistic method, to prove similar results and hopefully to extend this kind of results to more complex models? And this is what I will speak soon, but first, let me introduce more formally the notion of quasi-stationary distribution. First, the global setting of quasi-stationary distribution is for processes. Here I took a continuous time process X, but it can be discrete time process. It doesn't change much the problem. So let Xt evolving in a state space E cup D, where D is an absorbing state. We denote by tau D the first heating time of D, and we assume so that D is absorbing, meaning that Xt is equal to D for all T larger than the heating time of D. We define Q as the semi-group of the process before extinction, before absorption. I will switch randomly between the terminology absorbing and extinction, absorption and extinction. Okay, these are the same. So for example, in this case, another model with extinction. So you can have a one-dimensional model. The process evolves in R plus, and then at some point it hits 0 and it remains in 0. And you can have several type of trajectories, and but when it hits 0, then it remains in 0. Okay. And now the object of interest is the quasi-stationary distribution. That is a probability measure alpha on E, such that alpha is the limit when t goes to infinity of the law of Xt under P mu, conditionally to the process is not absorbed at time t. Okay, so if you have a process without absorption, that is, if tau d is equal to plus infinity almost surely, then you can see that alpha is a stationary distribution as the limit of the law of Xt when t goes to infinity. So here I worked precisely that this has to be true for some initial probability measure mu. And actually there are situations where even in irreducible models, where the limit can depend on the initial distribution. It's very common, even in irreducible aperiodic models. So why is it called a quasi-stationary distribution? Because it has some sort of stationary property, which is that the probability measure alpha is a quasi-stationary distribution if and only if the law of Xt under P alpha condition to X is not absorbed at time t is equal to alpha for all t positive. So this is an equivalent definition that maybe you will find sometimes as the primary definition. So the fact that the probability measure that satisfies the property of the proposition is indeed a quasi-stationary distribution is quite clear, because you just take mu is equal to alpha. And the converse property is not too difficult either. And it is true, I didn't precise it, but it is true if the limit in the definition holds true pointwise. That is for all measurable set A. So just quickly, 3 references on quasi-stationary distribution. First, 2 surveys that were written at the same time with 2 different perspectives. So surveys that I wrote with Sylvie Méléard in 2012 about general properties of quasi-stationary distribution and their application to population dynamics. Survey by Vandon and Paulette on processes and discrete state spaces, and a book by Pierre Collet, Servet Martinez, and Raïm San Martin that was also written at the same time with many properties on particular models and general properties with very abstract properties too on quasi-stationary distribution. Okay, so there are some basic properties that can be obtained directly from the properties that alpha is a quasi-stationary distribution. For instance, we know that for a process under P alpha, when alpha is a quasi-stationary distribution, the law of the extinction time is exponential with respect to some parameter lambda 0. And in fact, lambda 0 here is exactly the correspond to the theta 0 that we had in the second slide. That is, lambda 0 is an eigenvalue associated to alpha when alpha is seen as a left eigenvector to the semigroup of X. And in particular, if alpha is a quasi-stationary distribution, then for all theta between 0 and lambda 0 strictly excluded, the extinction time admits an exponential moment of parameter theta. So these are some strong properties. It is natural to ask whether there are some counterparts. In general, there are no counterparts, but okay, there are some partial counterparts, let's say. And one nice application to these very simple properties that it's very easy to see that, for instance, Galton-Watson processes in the critical case do not admit any quasi-stationary distribution. So the reason is that in the critical case, it is well known that the extinction time of the critical Galton-Watson process has an infinite expectation, and hence there is no theta such that tau d admits an exponential moment of parameter theta. So there is no lambda 0 positive such that alpha may be a quasi-stationary distribution with exponential parameter lambda 0, so there is no quasi-stationary distribution. However, in the subcritical case, it is well known, including for the multi-type Galton-Watson process, that under some mild conditions, the process admits a quasi-stationary distribution, and in general, an infinity of quasi-stationary distribution. So the first result of this type has been obtained by Yaglom, and you will often see an alternative terminology for quasi-stationary distribution, which is Yaglom limits. And you can also, I also refer to the book of Atria and Ney, which contains a large development on quasi-stationary distribution for Galton-Watson process. Okay, so now how to ensure the uniform convergence of quasi-stationary distribution for a given Markov process. So we obtain this criterion with Nicolas Champagnat. So let's consider the process X evolving in the state space E cup D with D absorbing. And under the assumption that we have a Dublin condition, so Dublin type condition, which is quite classical for conservative Markov processes, that is for Markov processes without absorption. And under an Harnack type inequality, which is not exactly an Harnack inequality, but it's of this kind, we can show that, okay, I will present you the two exact hypotheses later, we can show that these two properties are actually equivalent to the uniform convergence toward the unique quasi-stationary distribution of the conditional law of the process. So uniform with respect to the initial distribution. So more precisely, the two conditions are the following ones. Okay, for the expert in the domain, you will recognize a classical Dublin condition, but with a conditioning with respect to the non-extinction events. And the Harnack inequality is some balance property between the probability measure nu involved in the first assumption and the probability of non-absorption starting from any other point. So this is a quite abstract criterion. So how to apply it? So we can apply it, for instance, to multidimensional diffusion processes. So if you consider a diffusion process evolving in a bounded open domain D of RD, absorbed at the boundary of the domain, and solution to a uniformly elliptic stochastic differential equation. So you look at the process absorbed when it hits the boundary. Then in this case, we showed with Coulibaly, a colleague from ESL, that if D has a C2 boundary, then A1 and A2 hold true. So this is a general setting that allowed us to generalize some existing results on these models and to obtain uniform exponential convergence. And so existing results, previous results, were largely based on spectral theory. But the last reference with Nicolas, where we used again some similar properties, but for processes in R+2. With clearly, in order to get A1 and A2, in order to get uniform convergence toward a quasi-stationary distribution, you need to have processes that come back from infinity. And we also applied this criterion to distributed algorithms. So this is a work with Nicolas Champagnat and René Schott. So let's consider two customers, P1 and P2, using respectively x1 and x2 amounts of a fixed quantity f of a given resource R. So the two quantity x1 and x2 will evolve stochastically with sometimes intricate or not relations between each other. And since we have only a finite amount of resources, we impose the condition that x1 plus x2 is smaller than m. And when x1 plus x2 reaches m, we say that the system breaks. And so this will be seen as an absorbing state. And we also assume that each customer, P1 and P2, cannot use as much amount as I want, but that the maximum, they have a maximum possible amount of resource that they can use. Let's say, for instance, x1 is bounded by m1 and x2 by m2. So the question is, natural question, is it possible to summarize the distribution of the process before it breaks? Can we have properties also can we have properties on the breaking time of the process? In order to do that, we model this system. So for instance, by a stochastic differential equation, but not necessarily, it might be a simpler model or more complex one, and which evolves in, so here it's when you have D consumers, which evolves in a parallelepiped 0A1 up to 0AD. And we assume, in addition, that each component of satisfies X scalar Vj is smaller than Mj. So in fact, here each J will represent a particular resource. So we can have multiple resources. So what we say is that the stochastic differential is reflected on the hyperplane xi equals 0. That is when a customer reaches does not use any resource of type I. That at this time it will it can start again to use resources, and then it will the SDU will reflect on the hyperplane xi equals 0. And the system breaks when one of the resources is used in full, that is when X scalar Vj is equal to 1. And so we can reformulate the question as, does the process admit a quasi-stationary distribution? So this situation is, you cannot apply directly the previous application. We had to prove to use different tools, but we succeeded in proving that in this case, for instance, and for other models related to this kind of problems, assumption of A1 and A2 hold true, and hence, in particular, there is a quasi-stationary distribution alpha, which is the limit when t goes to infinity, uniform limit of the conditional law of the process. And we can also, for instance, if we take dx1t is equal to db1t plus sigma T2, sorry, and dx1t is equal to sigma db1t plus dbt2. So you see the sigma that for the first customer is on the second Brownian motion, and for the second customer is on the first Brownian motion. Okay, there is a misprint, of course, it's dxt2 on the right here. Okay, we can draw the quasi-stationary distribution and see what will be the typical distribution of the process before it breaks. And I didn't write it, present it, but we can also compute the lambda 0, we can compute the associated right eigenvalue, and all these give us information on the typical behavior of the process before it breaks. So Now, non-uniform convergence. So as I said, uniform convergence can only be obtained in not in very particular situation, but in situations where, in essence, the state space is bounded. For instance, if it's an R plus, you have to admit, you have to assume that there is an entrance boundary at infinity. For instance, we prove with Servet-Martinez and Rensen-Martin that for Burson-Dust processes, you have a unique quasi-stationary distribution if and if there is uniform convergence, which is true if and only if infinity is an entrance boundary. Okay, so now a criterion for non-uniform convergence. So it's a new criterion, it's assumption E with a lot of objects. So you don't have to read the first line now. But the idea that instead of assuming a global Dublin type condition, we assume that the Dublin type condition is true in a subset of the domain, subset K, which is typically a compactly embedded subset for model of diffusion processes, for instance. So we have this Dublin condition, and we have something similar to the Harnack condition too, but also only locally. That is only for X inside a subdomain of the state space. And this is very useful because usually proving A1 and A2 is very difficult when you consider a initial position X close to the boundary or close to some problematic states. Then you also have to control the distribution of the process outside of K. And in order to do that, we use Lyapunov type functions. So we have a Lyapunov type criterion. In particular, you can see in the first line something that you might be used to, which is a classical Lyapunov type criterion for stationary ergodic processes. But here we have a small twist because we need that the coefficient θ1 to be strictly smaller than another coefficient θ2, which typically will be control on the speed at which the process extends. So we have to ensure that θ1 is sufficiently small. And under these conditions, we obtain that we also have convergence toward a quasi-stationary distribution. This time it is not uniform in the initial distribution. It is not possible because the process does not necessarily come back from infinity in finite time. And actually we obtain the existence of a quasi-stationary distribution, but we know for that, because of other studies by other people, that in several of these models, there exists in fact an infinity of quasi-stationary distribution. Typically under this kind of conditions. So we only capture the existence of one of them, and this one is called the minimal quasi-stationary distribution, because actually it is a limit you can see here by taking mu is equal to delta x for some x, and you can see that nu qs is the limit of the conditional distribution of the process for the process starting with initial distribution given by a direct measure. So another application, let's try to apply again this new criterion, but to multidimensional diffusion processes. So this is the same setting as before, but this time with Nicolas Champagnat, we obtain that without assuming any regularity assumption on the boundary of the domain, we can prove that there exists a unique quasi-stationary distribution. So it's helpful even for bounded state space. It allows to obtain a new result. And also you can apply this result to D equal to RD, for instance, and under specific assumption on the coefficient of the stochastic differential equation. You can also prove that the process admits a quasi-stationary distribution, but for the second case, typically not a unique one. Okay. So now that we have this quasi-stationary distribution object, it is nice to have approximation schemes for it, because so typically the quasi-stationary distribution is a left eigenvector of some semigroup of some operator, and in general we don't know how to compute explicitly or analytically this kind of processes. So it's nice to have some probabilistic, stochastic approximation schemes. So there are several of them already, but I will present one of them where there are some particular difficulties and some open problems remain. So let Xt consider a Markov process evolving in a state space E cup D with the absorbing as before. We fix t bigger than 0, and we will consider the self-reinforced process Yt with state space E that evolves as follows. Starting from a position X, the process Y, which will be the reinforced process, evolves according to the dynamic of X up to the first time of absorption, okay? And before time t2. But this is a technical condition. Then, at this time, instead of leaving Y into the symmetry state, into the absorbing state D, we resample the position of Y according to its past trajectory. Okay, so this gives you a new position for Y2, which is inside the domain E, inside the state space E. It's not in the absorbing state D anymore. Okay, and you do it again, you let the process evolve according to the dynamic of X up to the next absorption time, and you resample it again according to its past trajectory, and so on and so on. And the typical convergence result that is known to be true in some situation, but that we hope to be true in a very large situation, is that the empirical distribution of the process, 1 over t integral between 0 and t of delta y s ds, converges almost surely to one nu qs. So almost surely to one nu qs, I don't precise the topology. It will typically depend on the process at hand. So this kind of processes has been studied by a lot of people, actually, especially for finite and compact state spaces, and more recently with Cécile Mayer and with Nicolas Champagnat and Michel Benaim. I worked on processes in non-compact state spaces where you have particular difficulties that have to be handled. Okay, so I will first, before speaking about especially the result with obtained with Cécile Mayer, I will first present the notion of measure-valued Polya processes, which are related to this question. Okay, so first, just a reminder on finite and particular case irreducible Polya urns, which are not the classical Polya urns because you have irreducibility. So what are there? So you consider an urn with here 3 colors, blue, black, and white, and you, as usual, pick a color at random, and you put back the ball that you picked, and depending on the color that you picked, you add in addition other colors. Okay, for instance, if you pick a blue ball, then you add back two black balls and a white ball. Okay, and for a black ball, you put back the black ball and you put back a blue ball, and you add a blue ball and a white ball, and so on. So for instance, if I pick a blue ball, then I will put back the blue ball and I will add 2 black balls and a white ball. I can do it again and again and again. Okay, and this defines a random dynamic on the states of urns. And the typical question is it true that the proportion of blue balls, for instance, in the urn, converges to some limit? So another way of so this is an informal definition. There are several ways to formally present these type of urns dynamics, but a way of doing it is to write it as follows. I said that the urn at time n is constituted of 3 blue balls, 3 black balls, and 2 white balls. And I say that Mn is, I see it as a probability measure on the space of colors. In this case, I say that Mn is equal to 3 delta blue plus 3 delta black plus 2 delta white, where delta blue, for instance, is a Dirac measure at the position blue. Okay. And then I pick a color at random in the space of colors, blue, black, white, with probability Mn renormalized. So in this case, I pick a blue ball with probability 3/8, a black ball with probability 3/8, and a white ball with probability 2/8. And what I do now, I have to implement the filling of the urn rules. So what we do is that we add to Mn, in order to obtain the state of the urn at time n+1, we add to Mn delta yn+1, seen as a line vector, times the matrix displayed on the slide. Okay, and you can see that this encodes exactly the dynamic of the urn. Okay. And for instance, so if I pick yn+1 equal blue, then the new state of the urn is given by cis Mn+1. So this type of urns has been especially studied by Aldous, Flannery, and Palacios in 1988 in the case of finite color state space, finite color spaces. And if you looked attentively to the penultimate slide, I think you can see that I already cited Aldous, Flannery, and Palacios, this exact work, for the approximation scheme. In fact, they proved that this kind of urn, renormalized Mn/Mne, converges in a finite state space case towards a quasi-stationary distribution associated to a renormalized version of the matrix R. And then this has been studied also in quite a lot of details, and in particular with central limit theorem by Svante Johnson in 2004. And you can also find some references of this kind of reinforced processes in the survey, in probability surveys of Pimentel in 2007. But this way of seeing this way of formalizing this process has been done simultaneously by Bandillo, Padilla-Tucker, and Mayer and Marquet. And the advantage of this formalization is that it is quite easy to generalize. It just says that Mn is a probability measure, is a measure on some state space. You say that yn+1 is picked according to Mn/Mne. This can be done in all generality. We don't need the fact that E is finite. And then the matrix will be replaced simply by a kernel. So let's do it. We consider E a Polish space. Well, actually, we don't need really a Polish space for the definition. It's just a way to, it's a technical assumption for the result that I would present to you. M plus the set of positive measures on E, and the initial urn. The initial urn is now instead of a set of balls of different colors, it's simply a positive measure on E. Okay, this is the initial position of the initial. And then you consider kernels from E to E. So I choose that R, the kernels can be random. It's just saying that the rule of, in order to fill the urn at each time, can be chosen randomly among a set of rules. And P kernel from E to E, but we can take P equal to I for the moment, for these examples. So if the urn Mn is defined at time n, we pick one yn+1 according to Mn/Mne. Again, take P equal I for the moment. And we said Mn+1 is equal to Mn plus delta yn+1 times Rn+1. Okay, so this is very, very similar to the finite state space case. Okay, why R may be random? Well, it's usually it's useful for different reasons. But for instance, let's consider this toy model of informal model of a population dynamic. You can imagine that you have an initial patch of population located in some area. It's a green patch. And then P is useful to say, okay, I want to say that I will have a new colony, okay, somewhere originating from the original patch, but somewhere in a vinicity, not exactly in the original patch, but somewhere in the vinicity of the patch. Okay, this is the role of P. Then I pick Y1 according to MNP over MNPE. And now I also want R to be random so that the new colony might have a different form, okay, a different shape, a random shape that depends on something stochastic, another stochastic process, not necessarily always the same shape. Okay, so this is why R is random. Okay, and then you can do it again. And now the typical question that you may have is, so you let the process evolve, you renormalize the process at each time, and the question is, does it converges when n goes to infinity? And in which sense and toward which objects? And that's where we need other technical assumptions. So I won't insist in these assumptions, simply observe two things. So the first one is that the minimum of the infimum of Rx of E, so this is the typical size of a new patch of colors, okay, of the new added colors, has to be lower bounded away from 0 uniformly on X. So this is very important. This is an important restriction. And then we want to have that there exists a theta strictly smaller than C1, such that we have this type of Lyapunov assumption for some function, Lyapunov function V. And this, in fact, is very similar to the assumption E that I presented to you before, because we had θ1 and θ2, and here C1 will play the role of θ2, and θ will play the role of θ1. Okay, so this is very similar. And actually, we have a third assumption, which is used at the end of the proof, that the Markov kernel R minus I, so you assume that R is obtained from the Rx1 is bounded by 1, so you have a Markov kernel, some Markov kernel, admits a quasi-stationary new QS, and essentially that you can apply the result on non-uniform convergence that I presented to you. So this is a consequence of that. And we have another technical assumption. Other technical assumption typically that R is Feller, and we need some bounds on the moments of Rx, but these are quite technical, and I think they don't speak much about the nature of the problem. And so in this case, we obtain that, assuming that the initial urn integrates V, then the sequence Mn over Mne converges almost surely toward nu QS, the quasi-stationary distribution associated to R minus I, for the topology of weak convergence. So this is quite general, but with the restriction that we have this C1 that has to be strictly bigger than 0, and θ strictly smaller than C1. So how does this apply to the approximation scheme? Well, simply, you take the Markov process X evolving in E cup D, the same as before, and you consider the initial composition measure M0 delta X0, and you define the random kernel Rx1 is equal to the integral between 0 and T and tau d, infimum with tau d, of delta XS ds, where X is distributed according to Px. Okay, so the process up to the extension time. And then it's not difficult to see that the law of the empirical distribution of the reinforced process Y that I presented to you at the end of the previous section is exactly given by Mn over Mne, at least at resampling times, and after that we have to do some measurations of the differences, but it's exactly given by the empirical distribution, by Mn over Mne. So we can encode the reinforced process into a Polya urn. And usually there are a lot of problems that can be re-encoded into Polya urns or into measure value Polya processes. That's why they are so interesting. And so, okay, so for instance, assume that X is solution to the stochastic differential equation dxt equal dbt plus bxt dt, that the killing rate of there is a killing rate of the process, uniformly bounded killing rate. Let Y be the reinforced diffusion. And in this case, in fact, I use exactly a criterion that I already exposed for the existence of a quasi-stationary distribution before. In this case, you can show that there is convergence towards a quasi-stationary distribution. So this means that I don't say that it is a useful approximation scheme, but at least it gives you a way to approximate the quasi-stationary distribution of this kind of diffusions. So to conclude, I will insist on the difficulty, the fact that in this case, if you set Qxe is equal to the expectation of Rxe, you can see easily that it's expectation of τ1 of τ infimum with t, and that it is smaller than t times the probability starting from x that τ1 is smaller than t. And so when there is hard killing, so hard killing is typically the case where you have a stochastic differential equation killed at the boundary of a domain. Okay, it's hard killing because it can be emulated by an infinite killing rate. Okay, so we call it hard killing as opposed to killed at some bounded rate. So in this case, it's not difficult to prove that the infimum over x of the right hand term in this equation goes to 0 when x converges to the boundary of the domain, for instance, so that the condition that we had on Qxe does not hold true. A possible direction and this is really a large and open question, is how to solve the question when there is hard killing. We actually solve the question for one particular model with Nicolas Champagnat and Michel Benaim. When X is an elliptic diffusion process killed at the boundary of a bounded regular open set D. And in this case, the main difficulty was to prove by coupling methods that actually the empirical distribution of the process defines a tight family of measures. And once you have a tight family of measures, essentially it's as if you work with, you work with a relatively compact set of measures, so you derive towards the compact territory, so finite state space territory, and things are made easier. Not easy, but easier. So the exact result is that it's very similar. There is no f; it's delta ys in the limit. So the empirical distribution of the process at time t converges toward the quasi-stationary distribution of the process. And that's all.
Thank you, Denis.